We kick off hour number 2 with our in-studio guests that need a hug because their respective teams lost collectively by the combined score of 65 to 36 in week number 1. But at least they've got a winning pod on the Underdog Fantasy Podcast Network 5 times a week. Check out Heed the Call with Dan Hanzus and Marc Sessler. Good to see you guys. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
We're doing well. It is a reminder, yes, that things could be better with the football teams. But, I was saying, Mark, on our podcast last night with the Jets, Rich, that
yes, sir.
We won week 1 last year, but the season felt over. This year we lost week 1, but we're still alive.
That's right.
There's a lot to go.
That's what I said to start the program.
Brockman over there thinks the Patriots now are alive and the Jets are dead. We'll see. Week 1 lies, Brockman. You know that.
That's what I think. Kyle Brandt said that all throughout game day morning and on Good Morning Football overtime, which you can see right here on the Roku channel. But in all seriousness, though, I did start the program to say, hey, at least the quarterback walked out and he's healthy and he will be starting week number 2 for Tennessee. Where do you stand on the way the Browns week 1 went?
I mean,
Mark?
A dictionary definition of an apocalypse. I mean, it was like I was, we cover a number of games for our show on Sunday night, and
Indeed.
I was excited to pick that one up. I thought it was going to be, you get Tom Brady in the booth, and
yes.
He fared better than Cleveland. I thought the Browns basically took every question you had about them and answered it in the most negative way possible. I'm in a world at this point where I thought they were so completely outcoached, outclassed, that about 5 or 6 minutes into game time, I knew it was over. And I've been doing this for years. There's been Browns games where like game over, like midway through the first quarter. It's like, I think season over if they don't figure out what's happening with Deshaun Watson, because I am looking at a quarterback that has regressed to a point where I don't understand who he was in Houston, who he is now, and I would much rather turn to Jameis Winston at this point, a la Joe Flacco, the last time I felt hope as a Browns fan.
So that is an interesting question there, because Watson did say after the game, his dad passed away and his close friend passed away, even though his mom raised him. He said it affected him. He didn't use it as an excuse, he was saying. But there were a couple of throws. And again, because I had Amari Cooper in a fantasy against that man that's in the corner right there, who I can't look in the face because he actually beat me this week.
It's tough.
Dude, I don't understand why. Because I feel like I've got a lot going on in my life.
That's the problem.
But why do I need to win a fantasy to actually feel good about myself internally and externally? It's so sad. But that's my own. That's an MP, not a YP. Okay. So
it's like an American P.
But I was focusing a little bit on where Cooper was on the field. A couple of times he's in the end zone or heading to the end zone, and the ball hit the back wall. And a couple of times he's going down the left sideline and the ball hit the kicking net.
Yeah.
And it was so far afield. It was one of what has happened to this guy is the question you have to have.
There were so many turnover-worthy throws. I thought his finest pass of the day was a dart out of bounds to CeeDee Lamb, who caught it with no problems along the Cowboys sideline. That was
no, he did. He did take one in the chops after taking it in the chops all day, and he hit Cooper in his hands, and it went through his hands. Yeah. That's another thing that I was, particularly keen to see him catch. But that said, it was a big ass question mark all Sunday.
I think there's a world where. I can't roadmap it right now, but the Browns find a way to get out of this situation at some point, and you can't do this for 3 more years. What we just saw, I don't know if I could do it for 3 more weeks. 3 more minutes might be tough. So
$92 million guaranteed left on the contract after this year, and the thing that's jumped out to me watching him, it's also, coming out of college, his coach was saying this is a Michael Jordan type talent. He can do everything, and that's what he looked like at times with Houston. And all the off-the-field stuff is one thing. On the field, scattershot arm. He does not push the ball downfield. And when he tries to evade pass rush, he was a supreme athlete. And now all you ever see is him getting dragged down as he tries to escape the pocket. He just seems like a different player entirely. So that's a tough one.
There's some winnable games sitting in front, too, though. I mean, and I'm not talking about this week. At Jacksonville, that is a tough place to play.
Yep.
That is a tough team. I mean, Josh Hines-Allen is a grown man. Travon Walker did look better against the Dolphins in week number 1. And they're also equally as desperate to not go to 0-2. You do have the Giants in week 3 coming into the dog pound. Now, if Daniel Jones and the Giants come in there and win that game, I don't know.
We have problems at that point.
I would think so. I mean, at Vegas, at Washington, these are games that a team that made the playoffs last year with 11 wins, and Joe Flacco being the comeback player of the year because of how well he was performing in this offense without Nick Chubb, although with I imagine a more healthy offensive line. These are games that the Browns should win. You should expect them to win these games.
Yeah, I think that you can, like, looking at the schedule, you could roadmap them being 2-2, possibly 3-2.
Right.
I think it still comes down to who is this quarterback and what does he look like? Because if it's this, winning those games loses meaning to me because you still have to go through the rugged nature of the entire season with someone that I'm not sure can play anymore. I watched a quarterback.
Wow.
I'm not sure this quarterback can play anymore. And I also does he want to? Is this someone that is burning with passion to play football? Because when I hear him speak and talk, I just don't see it. I mean, we've all seen those quarterbacks where you can feel that their livelihood, everything about them, their soul, their nucleus is about playing football at the NFL level. And I'm not feeling that personally from Deshaun Watson. I tweeted out last night, just like playing quarterback for the Cleveland Browns should mean something. And it was an image of Bernie Kosar in a driving snowstorm against the old Houston Oilers. That meant something to me, like watching him play. I could feel it. You could feel it coming off his skin. And I don't feel the way with Deshaun Watson. I don't know how else to say it. I just show it to me.
And I wonder
show it to all of us.
If it does continue down this road, if you know, Kevin Stefanski, he's in a very safe place. He's the reigning coach of the year. But if he feels one way and ownership feels another way, like what is happening behind the scenes around his, whether he continues as QB1 with this team, if the play doesn't get where it needs to be. I mean, the money is outrageous that they promised to this guy, and now his play has complicated everything.
But if you go to Jameis and Deshaun is healthy, you bench him just to say he needs a break, he needs a breather, he needs this. How, with $92 million left on a contract, how do you even go back to him, right? I mean, I guess you can.
Right.
You can. I mean, so the question is doesn't this essentially fracture the relationship if they just say you're benched due to ineffectiveness?
Yes, I think it does fracture it. And I guess it's like, are we okay with it being fractured? I mean, they weren't in the offseason because Joe Flacco wanted to stay in Cleveland. And I think we all think, like, Joe Flacco was too likable. He was winning. The team loved him. He was giving the speeches in the locker room after the game, and everyone just, you could feel that leadership. And who's giving the speeches in the pregame? Cleveland Browns feed is tweeting out Jameis motivating the troops. You didn't even see Deshaun Watson doing it. So it's like, I think they're a little allergic to someone coming in and being more likable than Deshaun Watson because they've got a problem with Deshaun Watson as a personality. I don't think that we're understanding who he is. He feels a little lost to me as who is this human being for multiple reasons. And it's like Joe Flacco, too likable. Jameis Winston, you have a problem if he comes in, he wins a few games, and he's the Jameis version of himself where he's verbally intriguing and riles up the whole team. And the Browns fans are going crazy for him. We're right back where we were a year ago with Flacco, and they got rid of that guy because it was too much of a problem. You're stuck with this guy at quarterback. So I think it is a conundrum.
I thought being a Jets fan was complicated, Rich. This is a whole
this
other
is why
level.
I don't sleep. I'm up all night,
There's a little existential crisis stuff going on here.
Well, if we cut to 1 year ago today, you were in a fetal position, sir.
I was.
I mean, there's no question about it.
I was.
Dan Hanzus and Marc Sessler here. Everybody should check out the Heed the Call podcast on 5 days a week, and you could see it. It's an Underdog production of Underdog. And so let's move on to the Jets. What's your take on what you saw on Monday Night Football?
Obviously disappointing. And I thought that the one thing that concerns me, and I liked what I saw from Aaron Rodgers overall. I know he did the numbers weren't great and he wasn't perfect, but I came out of the game seeing enough to be like, okay, that's going to be okay. The concern that I've had around this team for the last couple of years is I don't trust the coaching. And to come into that game and see Shanahan just go in circles around his old buddy Saleh and Ulbrich, the DC, and just out scheme, and then all the concerns that you had, like the Jets have had a strong defensive line under Saleh. They made some changes. Reddick is obviously missing here, and to see them get worked the way they were up front, that is concerning to me. So it is ironic and it is very Jetsy that they finally get the quarterback back, and and I know Brockman's smirking over there, but the third
Don't
drive.
worry about him.
I can't help it. These Boston guys.
It's in your head.
Don't worry.
But like
Yeah,
third drive when Rodgers takes over, 70,000 fans screaming, and you see he's in control of the line, and he's totally got the team locked in. They go right down the field, big third down pickups, and you're like, okay, this is a professionally run offense with an all-time great at quarterback. And then now the defense is where we're springing leaks. So you go into week 2 in Nashville thinking, okay, that seems like a nice matchup. And I watched the Titans this morning, and Will Levis was a mess in that game, just every bit as bad as Deshaun Watson in some ways. And I think, okay, this should be a get-right game. But how do I feel confident after watching that Tony Pollard's not going to go off after what Jordan Mason did?
Let me give you a half glass full.
Okay. Hit me, Rich.
The last time Rodgers played a snap was when his Achilles snapped. He didn't do a thing in the preseason on the field in a game. Last night was the first time they actually did it together in a game. And the Niners are your opponent. And Fred Warner is standing in the middle of that field.
Yeah.
And he's peanut Tillmaning the ball out of Breece Hall's arms. And he's also going sideline to sideline behind Bosa up front. I mean, what'd you expect? And the fact that they did put it together for that, touchdown drive that gave him the lead to start. I mean, it's a flash. That's a sign. It was like I said, Rick Dalton gif. Like there it is. That's exactly what they can do. But you're right. The defense was the biggest thing. And as I said to start the show, if you want to play for Saleh, you better show up because there's a door. And even Rodgers has said that if they underperform this year, everybody's gone. I mean, Joe Douglas is not on. He's on, I guess, the Mike McCarthy plan right now. Like his contract's up. He doesn't
As
have
he
any.
should be.
Well, I mean, he's put together quite a team, and Hassan Reddick's not walking through that door. I mean, he's got no cachet with the Jets. He's never played it down for the Jets, and so I mean, if you're hoping that he's the answer should be in the building. You know?
And Hassan Reddick, if he's on the field, Brock Purdy, could set up a picnic yesterday, but really Hassan Reddick's not a guy that's known for stopping the run either. So that's not like the game would have been totally different.
I don't think so.
I think overall, I don't want to sound doom and gloom because I'm not, because I really do. And, we had my dad who's, goes back to the Namath days on the show last night. And he had a similar vibe as I did, was like, well, that sucked. But you know what? We have more time to figure this out. And that's just such a big difference from last year when not only did you lose Rodgers, but you knew the season was over after week 1. So plenty of time to get it figured out. But absolutely, you can't spin it any other way than disappointment, because once you hear Christian McCaffrey's out and you knew it was a summer of storms up there in San Francisco with the player and the holdout and all that stuff going on, it felt like a good spot for the Jets, weirdly, to me. And, me and a lot of other Jets fans were wrong.
Dan Hanzus, Marc Sessler here on the Rich Eisen Show. Everybody check out the Heed the Call pod, all 5 of them every single week through the Underdog Fantasy production. Okay, so I'll give you the macro question. Your week 1 storyline is what, Mark?
I am deeply concerned about Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. I thought that was a team that was not only going to win the division, but come out and at home show us that all these weapons in a post-Arthur Smith world would be used correctly, and that Kirk Cousins, coming off the Achilles, would look like the old Kirk Cousins. And, I watched the game, I was like, I think he's healthy. But then the more that you dig into it and look at what happened on some of his near interceptions and incompletions, it's an issue with the footwork. I just don't know if he's able to really drive the ball the way he wants to. And I think it raises the question that we've talked about a lot on our show. It's like, you went out and drafted Michael Penix, and he played in the preseason. They shut him down because they liked him enough. He's the kind of guy that's spicy, and if they get into trouble, the fans start crying for the backup. And I just wonder where they are in even a couple weeks. Like, if Kirk Cousins struggles, is Michael Penix too rich of an option to not take a look at, to turn to? So to me, they're a team of intrigue. I thought they would come out and beat a Steelers team, and they were dominated by TJ Watt. And so I leave concerned with the Atlanta Falcons, and they are my interesting team of intrigue at this point.
Yeah, their next 2 games, Monday Night Football in Philadelphia. And, Kirk Cousins has had some long nights there as a member of the Vikings, and obviously some with the Commanders. And then they got the Chiefs coming in. I mean, those are their next 2, with a visit to New Orleans and with the home dates with New Orleans and Tampa, and you have to win your home division games. So that's the way the Falcons are looking after that week 1 loss. And Arthur Smith has got to feel great, right? To beat the Falcons with 6 field goals. even
Right.
though his offense didn't get in the end zone, but at
And
least he's got that revenge served
And that
cold.
schedule, that reminds me of the way, Park Avenue sets it up. It's like, we'll give you, maybe it's not a cookie in week 1 at home, but one that you should win. But if you don't, you better watch out, because the next 2 weeks could be a nightmare situation for you. I think Cousins, to use a baseball analogy, Rich occasionally will text about the Yankees.
Yes. His cousin, I think, is Jake Cousins.
It is. It is,
And I
yes.
think he should be the closer, by the way, just to veer off right now if I had to choose one. But I'm sorry to diverge.
But now I feel like it should be something about Jake Cousins. But I was going to mention Nestor Cortez, the type of pitcher who doesn't live with great stuff. So a fastball that maybe sits 92, 93. If you have a shoulder issue or something with your lower body, Kirk Cousins never had a cannon for an arm. So I think it's fair to wonder if he's physically compromised at all after a major surgery, and he's a little older. If he does lose something off a fastball that was never a big time fastball, is he going to start hanging some balls over the middle? Like, these are real concerns. But overall, he's been such a steady guy in his career, and I think he's set up with pieces around him still that I'm not overly concerned, but they have put themselves in a tough spot now.
And the glass half full way to go about that, too, is Kyle Pitts scored a touchdown in American soil.
Sure did.
So,
Yeah.
Cousins found him,
That's
and he was
true.
wide open. And by the way, you got to hit him when he's 9 feet tall and waving his arms because you're so damn wide open. I mean, if you don't hit that, then you got a problem. Your week 1 story would be what?
A lot of hype around the Texans, and so I think Mark picked them to actually win the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And
So it's a lock. So, yes.
So, yeah, watching this great division matchup, and I'm kind of bullish in general about the AFC South as a fun division this year. And seeing Anthony Richardson, who was imperfect but a lot of fun with 3+ 50-yard
Dude, that
plays
throw
in
to
this
Alec
game.
Pierce is
Unreal.
the clubhouse leader for throw of the year right now.
His foot kind of goes out. There's something going on with the Lucas Oil turf. I don't know if you had any issues when you were in Indy, Rich. I don't know if they had switched it out yet.
No, it's
Yeah.
always been the turf.
Yeah, so they changed it, and now
overcame it, though.
exactly. That's the difference
the
between
story
4-4. But yeah, so that was fun. But C.J. Stroud having a monster running game is a scary thought, and just like what we saw in San Francisco with that line blowing open huge running lanes for the backup running back, seeing Joe Mixon just going through, reaching the second level without being touched. Now, the Colts had a bad day defensively, but if their running game is for real, and Stephon Diggs was a really nice fit, wasn't the 2022 Stephon Diggs necessarily, but he was a red zone menace with 2 touchdowns. We know that they have other big-time receivers with Nico Collins and Tank Dell there, and C.J. Stroud in year 2 after a historic year 1. If you give them a running game, they might lead the league in scoring, and look out, and Mark might end up right in February. So watching Mixon just kick ever-living butt is something that jumped out to me in week 1 for
Who
that
did you
team.
predict the Texans to beat in the Super Bowl?
I had the Texans beating the Detroit Lions 27-21 in overtime.
Geez, you're giving me that's oddly specific. I'm not going to.
Well, we were.
I've been
meant to be-
doing. This is the 15th year we've covered the NFL together, and Mark has never not picked a game to go to overtime. So that's just so you know.
Actually,
the broken clock's going to be right at least once. And last year, your clock was broken perfectly.
Falcons, Patriots, I got that right.
Very nice.
Nailed it.
See,
Nicely
now,
done.
but now that it's happened, you got to go raise the stakes and say double overtime.
That's a
How
good
have you
point.
not realized
Yeah,
that?
that's a good point. That's you're a good showman, because that would have been the correct move there.
27-21. So do they score first, or do they stop
it's
them
about to
first
say.
and then score a touchdown?
Weird.
Do
That's
they
an
miss
odd-
the extra point?
That's a weird overtime
I think they missed
story.
the extra point,
Okay.
and then they go do what
This
they
is
need to do on the
unbelievable.
next
Stop
drive.
them on defense. Got
So
it.
that is actually raising the stakes a little bit, because that's a very odd scenario to miss.
But
the
now,
extra
why
point.
even watch the game? You seem to have what was it, Biff Tannen's almanac now. Why even watch?
Great sports almanac.
Well, TJ's got the script,
I do.
right? Don't you? Do you still have it? TJ keeps busting
I
this
can't
thing out.
let it
There
out
it
of my
is.
sight,
There
guys.
it is.
This is like gold right
Did
here.
you print
Oh, my
out
goodness.
the cover page yourself? I'm wondering how you've done this sort of thing.
I ain't printing nothing. It came to me in this confidential envelope.
Did you print out?
It's obviously legitimate.
Did you
and
print
legal.
out the word confidential on an envelope?
Again, Rich, I didn't do anything. I walked to my mailbox. I looked in.
there.
And it
Dangerous.
was there.
Weird.
Yeah, it was just there.
Actually,
Really
I won't lie to you guys. I had to sign for it. It was that important.
Got it.
They
Oh,
didn't
wow.
just
Of course.
put
Well,
it
Who did
in.
it come from? An R. Goodell?
It
Is that what you're
just says
saying?
The Shield NYC on here is
Oh,
what it
you
says.
even printed that out too.
You keep blaming.
Now, do you have a glue stick?
I
Do
don't
you use
have
a
any
glue
of this.
stick?
All I had was a letter opener that I popped this open with,
way it goes.
and I pulled the script out, and I could have told you what happened week one, but I didn't want to.
Is it
That's nice.
Did your mom send you the glue stick from Altoona?
See, you know my mom don't know nothing about football. It says right
Have your
here.
arts and
Doesn't-
crafts from back in the
Fellas,
day?
doesn't this look legitimate? Doesn't this look like it came from
great.
the league?
Looks
I
great.
mean,
Wish it was color.
It's all right
Collated.
there. See the script?
Who did you pick for the Super Bowl, Dan?
Oh, we don't really need to.
What
Do we?
What did I touch a third rail here? What is it?
Well-
Jets who?
That's Packers.
That's exactly who I picked.
Oh, my
Jets,
God.
Packers.
Look at you.
Yeah.
I mean, boy, you need a super fun site after week one for that one.
So, but I think that was exactly the pick. Last year was actually Jets Niners. So again, broken clock is right once so far for the Jets every 60 years almost now. So like, well, maybe it comes back around. It's about 60. So
Well, let's talk about the Packers a little bit here because I do feel like there's a bit of a vibe of last year's Jets here. Although at least for the Packers, Jordan Love is not out for the full season. But even if he's out for a third of a season, the rest of the division just won in week one, right?
Yeah.
And I think Sam Darnold shows you that this team is going to at least be in the running for a 7 seed with they're not going to win just 4 games, 5 games if everybody stays healthy there in Minnesota. The Bears are who I think we think they are, which is a team that's going to struggle a little bit on offense until
they take
they can
time.
maybe
Yep.
match the defense in terms of production, and they have the horses to do that. So, and the Lions are I think, as they showed, good enough to win it all again in the division, if not the entire conference, if not the entire league. So if they're going with Malik Willis, who's, I guess, in the Zach Wilson role of, we got you there, we don't intend to ever use you, but we've got you there. I don't know if he can be coached up to the point where they're going to win half the games that they're going to have to win with Jordan Love out.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm telling any lies here.
No, if the most mystifying thing that I saw in week one was Antonio Pierce punting on 4th and 1 from the plus 43 down 6 with 7:15 to go in the fourth quarter against the Chargers. The second most mystifying thing was looking at the depth chart of the Packers and realizing that their backup quarterback is a guy that washed out of Tennessee immediately, just got signed a couple weeks ago, and probably doesn't even have a strong grasp of the playbook. And you're trying to win a Super Bowl. I can't believe that they left themselves so vulnerable. And I hope things go well. Like our producer on Heed the Call is Justin Graver, who does an amazing job, and he's a Titans fan. And he's real about Malik Willis. He understood why they went and got Will Levis. So maybe there's Matt LaFleur pixie dust here, and he can get him past this stretch without messing up their season. But I feel like they're extremely vulnerable, every bit as vulnerable as the Jets were last year with Zach Wilson right now.
Well, I think it's the reason that whispers, came about maybe like Ryan Tannehill is like the one veteran guy sitting out there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
look at you need your backup quarterback. Like, I think ideally, like, you project him to play 1 or 2 games or a half or a quarter where like he has to come in and just do the job. And everything that we've seen from Malik Willis does not suggest he's going to just come in and do the job, especially in a new environment, new team, new playbook.
Yeah.
I love the coaching there. I think there's great surrounding cast. It's not a bad situation for a backup, but I would be looking around for someone who has been in the NFL for years that has some proven proof of concept track record. I would call Ryan Tannehill right now. I've sort of said there's been reports that maybe they want to do that, maybe they don't. But if you're Matt LaFleur, I mean, you're right. This division is gnarly. It's nasty. It's not what it was a couple years ago. There's no easy turns here, and so you can't fall behind 2 or 3 games because your quarterback cannot provide.
So wasn't LaFleur there when Tannehill was there? I mean, didn't they hire LaFleur from Tennessee when Tannehill was there? I mean, they must speak the same language.
There are
I don't
reports
think
out there that Tannehill wants to be in like the perfect situation.
Well, guess what? Honestly,
Probably not existing.
Well, I mean, the perfect, take a look. I don't blame him, right? But he's waiting for what? Somebody to go down for the year? honestly, you have to take a look at the way things are in the world. I would give 2 cents. Last year's comeback player of the year, right? Last year's comeback player of the year was on the couch past Halloween,
right?
And so maybe the 6 weeks are now, and you're standing there, and anything can happen. And suddenly you're playing a playoff game for the Green Bay Packers, and you're just saying, I'm going to sit and wait for the situation where I'm going to start a playoff game like Joe Flacco. Those are pretty rare, man. I don't know.
On the flip side of that, though, like, we don't really know where his headspace is at. He's made a lot of money.
That's true.
He's got a nice family and everything over there. And maybe he's thinking, this would be nice. This would be nice to come in and get a couple starts with the Packers.
Now, when you say nice family, you're talking about environment? Is that what you're saying?
Like Ryan Tannehill seems like a wonderful woman, and I know they have children. They seem to be happy.
There you go.
I don't know them personally, actually. I don't even know why I'm talking about Ryan
reporting about
Tannehill's personal life.
I'm just trying to...
I don't know. Get me out of this, Rich. What I'm saying is that he's probably thinking to himself, well, it's an MCL sprain.
Yeah.
It's maybe a 2 to 3 week injury. And you know what? I'm comfortable where I am right now, and I don't want to be standing with a clipboard in December in Green Bay once Jordan Love is healthy and like tearing up the NFL again. I get that human side of it too, but it depends.
I can report briefly that I have met Lauren Tannehill. Dan knows this at NFL Honors. You know, when you're trying to get quotes from players and everyone's shoved up along the wall.
Sure.
Lauren Tannehill, beautiful person, nice person, like had her purse on the ground, a very expensive white purse, and I got moved back by a handler and stepped on her white purse.
Oh, no. Did you smudge?
I was there.
I heard a loud crackling sound, like it
was
must
a
have been
crunch.
like a compact or something expensive, shattered inside, and we kind of just looked at each other, and it was kind of like, I hate you a little bit. That was her look to me. And then I skirted away into the distance after apologizing. So she handled it well. So I think, Dan, you're right.
I think that was the final time, Rich, we were assigned to cover the red carpet at NFL.
We never,
That's the end of that.
we never did that again.
I don't think we got the invite after
Got to watch
that.
where you're stepping.
Yeah.
That's it, man. You never know.
It's my
Heed
superpower.
the call, the podcast that'll tell you who's nice in the family world, right here on
Take
the
guesses, educated
Rich
guesses.
Eisen Show. You're just throwing darts at a board.
Yeah.
What Instagram? Okay. So who's standing in the Chiefs' way? You said Texans. Give me another one. Give me who's standing in the Chiefs' way.
Man, the one other team I would just want to throw out because they're not getting a lot of love through the summer. Just watching Josh Allen ball out, and after falling behind against the Cardinals, and everything looks like it's going to hell, and he is one of those dudes. There's probably only 5 of them in the league that you could tell where he's like, okay, I'm changing the situation here. He ends up with 4 touchdowns in that game, 2 on the ground. He jacks up his hand in the process, and you have to worry about that. He is going to have to do a lot with that offense, but he can. And, you know, you watch the Jets fall on their face in that game. We know what Miami does every December and January, and the Patriots are the Patriots, week 1 notwithstanding. And, like, the idea of just counting out Buffalo and counting out that man with so much to prove, that was an eye-opener to me on Sunday.
And then you've got the Cowboys here. And if I'm just saying, if the Chiefs had done to the Browns what the Cowboys did to the Browns, if the Lions had done to the Browns, if the Niners had done to the Browns what the Cowboys just did to the Browns, just trying to show you some false equivalencies unless they're true equivalencies. A lot of us in our media world would be like, they're winning the Super Bowl. The Cowboys do it, and it's just like, okay, we'll see in January, you know? And I'm just wondering, again, because what they did, their stat sheet didn't light up. But what lit up was everything else. The only stat sheet that really lit up was Brandon Aubrey's stat sheet. And it could have been lit up with a 70-yarder, which I thought they still were going to go to. I've never seen one attempted. I've seen many attempted on the elf. I've never seen anything tempted on the left side of the elf before.
Pretty cool.
Beyond the elf.
Beyond the Elf, which is another, maybe Underdog can have a podcast called that.
I'll write that one down.
But that's the way I came on, gave them their flowers. That's what I handled this way. Gave them their flowers, and then the other headline is whatever. I mean, that's really the way you got to look at it.
Well, I love that because, I mean, last year, the way they destroyed the Giants early on in the season,
40-0.
right? And that was every aspect of their team dominating. And that's what I thought with Cleveland was like special teams, defense. Their offense wasn't explosive, but they did everything they needed to do. Coaching, it looked like they've got it all together.
He called a great game, McCarthy.
He really did. And like, I think it was kind of like, wait a minute, after we spoke about the Cowboys all offseason in a certain way, they went and just dominated. But last season is proof of like, yeah, but I can't trust that until it occurs in the new year. Like, I need it to happen in January, and I'm okay not trusting them until they prove me wrong. I think also they played a team that looked disorganized and disheveled and completely lost with no plans. So
I felt for Siciliano, who this is his dream job,
true.
calling Browns games, right?
Tuffy, yeah.
And that's his first one. He deserves better. You deserve better. You sound like the kid who sent the letter to Belichick right now. That's what you sound like.
I was that kid.
I know you were.
Yeah,
I
I'm not
work
a
with
kid
Bill now.
anymore.
He's a colleague, so
Yeah.
maybe we could get that
that's
squared away on
Yeah.
Heed the Call.
So
yeah.
how old were you when you sent a letter to Belichick?
Well, I was actually, it's a weird story, but I went to Miami of Ohio
Yes.
and took a class
was
called
38.
football coaching. I was not 38. I was like 17. But you
Yes.
had to find a coach to write to, and a lot of people were just writing their old high school coach. And I was like, I'm going to write Bill Belichick and see what happens. Like, probably never hear back. And then, like,
at the time, current head coach of the Cleveland Browns.
Absolutely. And I actually went to Miami of Ohio because I wanted to work for the Browns. So I was like, I'm going to just simply go to Ohio. That made a lot of sense. Transferred a year later. Nothing happened. But like Belichick wrote back like a month later. I always thought it was probably like his secretary, but who was Nick Saban's secretary at Alabama for years later.
Okay.
And she confirmed that it was actually Bill after I wrote that story. So
At a typewriter, like he typed it out himself, not dictated but not read
I
by
have to
Bill
imagine
Belichick?
it was dictated. Like
Okay.
the idea of, because it was typewritten, but there were computers then,
But
so
signed.
it could have come off like a dot matrix printer.
So you still obviously have this.
I do
letter,
have.
this
I do.
missive.
I have all these. Yeah. I have all
Okay,
these
so it
letters.
is entirely possible with him part of the underdog world,
Right.
that you can actually get him to sign it or have a conversation with you about it, maybe on Heed the Call or something
I
like
think
that?
so. It also strikes me that it could come across as slightly creepy. So I'm trying to
me tell
think
you
about
something.
how to
That's-
approach that.
Should I tell him my story? You got to fight through the creepiness.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I've done that multiple times with Donald Arthur Mattingly, one of the greatest human beings
My
ever
hero.
created. Mine too.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I have done it. I have embarrassed myself in front of him multiple times. And you know what? It embarrasses my loved ones. But I keep going. I keep going. Don't you worry. I do.
That's a good lesson.
Please keep
I'm gonna-
going.
I'm gonna-
fight
yeah.
through the creepiness.
Okay. I've been told that before. So
By Ryan Tannehill,
Yes.
everybody. Okay, everyone. Hey.
Put Donnie in the hall.
There you go. That's a heavy lift, as much as I hate to admit. Good to see you, gents. Come back anytime. Let me know what's going on in your world, and appreciate you coming on here.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us, Rich.
Marc Sessler, Dan Hanzus, everybody check out Heed the Call, 5 pods a week on the Underdog Podcast Network. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.